Right, now this will tell us. And that's pretty conclusive. Still going. Close. I think he's got it down.
How strong is he?
Welcome back to the Pick and Go Rugby podcast, everyone. Big week of rugby coming up. Obviously, this is leading the way for me personally as the kickoff of the Bunnings NPC in about 24 hours' time. But unfortunately, the powers of B have spoken, and there's another big game happening over in South Africa that we've got to talk about as well. So I'm very happy to be joined on the line from the Republic, the man himself, Jeff Wilson. Jeff, thanks very much for joining the podcast again. How are you?
Go the Stags. That's all I'll say. Go the mighty Stags. And Otago, you know, have they got the Razorback still? Isn't that what they were running back for a while? Look, how are things? Look, it's great to be here. We're at Nelspruit, White River, Mbombela here in South Africa. I've been here a couple of days now. Look, it's lovely. It's fantastic. The All Blacks have never played at this stadium, never been here. We're staying where the All Blacks are staying, and they've sort of gone into a mini lockdown. There's fences dividing the resort in two. They've got their field, they've got their gym. There's no doubt they've sort of locked themselves away to the point they understand what's at stake, right? And they've been very cordial when we've seen them around, but I'll tell you what, it's very much been them keeping to themselves and focusing on what's coming on what Sunday morning for New Zealand watchers and Saturday night here. And it's going to be nice and warm, and it's going to be a huge, huge occasion. You know, it's going to be a fantastic. And everyone we've spoken to, and I know there's been so much said about the All Blacks, but everyone understands that this contest is a little bit different, and the margins will be very, very small. Bumped into Skalkaberger yesterday. You know, he's saying exactly the same things. You know, that everyone over here is wary of this because, bottom line, they know the margins between the All Blacks and South African teams are very, very small.
Yeah, no, I think we will get to it shortly, but I'm not quite sure. Maybe the rest of the world shares the full-on despair that the New Zealand Rugby Republic seems to have for the All Blacks at the moment. But I think it was important we got you back on, because the last time you were on a podcast to preview a game, the All Blacks went and scored 40 points, and the two tests since then both went horribly wrong. But we are also joined by a man no one's ever accused of being a lucky charm, from his palatial estate in Hataitai, joining us live, Paul Moati. Paul, how are you feeling about everything heading into the first test against the Springboks?
I'm really looking forward to it. This is, I guess, as Jeff has said, the All Blacks have gone into almost they formed a formation around the team, and so it's all about them and them concentrating on the one job at hand, and that's beating the Springboks this weekend. So obviously a few changes since the last time they played against Ireland. Jason Ryan has joined, so I expect to see an improved performance from the pack, although they're up against, regardless of who the Springboks pick, they'll be up against a huge pack on the weekend. So it's going to be very, very tough for them. What I'm really looking for is, do they have a different game plan to the one that they used against the Irish? Do they have some tricks in the bag that they're going to pull out this weekend, which will just put the Springboks off their game? Yeah, it's fascinating. And as you say, can't wait for the start of the NPC either. I see the Stags are huge outsiders this weekend against Tasman.
Yeah, no, well, as Jeff will have known from listening last week, we've both got our bets on the Stags to make the quarterfinals on this podcast. So this is a very pro-Southland podcast, but we might have a chance to touch on them later. But yeah, keen to just go back to what you were sort of saying before, Jeff. The feeling in the Republic maybe not full of confidence as so much as we might be thinking as New Zealand rugby fans over here. Obviously, this is a Springboks team. They did win the series against Wales, but now they have only won 5 of their last 10 tests overall, and a couple of others they could have very easily lost. I think, you know, the Springbok coaching staff, they've obviously earned the trust of the public, having won a World Cup and Alliance Series, both in very recent memories. But is the South African public happy that they could, should we say confident they can put it all together here with the big test against the All Blacks?
They're still not too dissimilar to the New Zealand public, where they still don't like losing. They're still in a position where there's still pressure on this group and Rassi Erasmus, and the fact that they approached their series against Wales a little bit differently, where they make significant changes for the second test, which they lost, but that was still history. They don't like losing at home. And so, I think for them, they're looking at challenges the All Blacks are facing, but also they're not uncomfortable with where the Springboks are at, but I think they'd like to see them perform with more consistency. And man, they lost twice to Australia last year. Someone brought that up to me last night when I was having a yarn to them talking about our test match. And they said their concern is the fact that they're finding ways, like you've said, to lose test matches they probably shouldn't lose. But what they've proven is when they play the All Blacks, they're quite capable of getting up for the big occasion. Now, we just got over the top of them last year in the 100th test match between the two countries. The very next week, they came up and did enough to beat us in the last of the Rugby Championship. Now, people will say, oh, yeah, but there was nothing riding on that. There's always something riding on that. So I think they look at their group and they look at the way that they play. And interestingly enough, I spoke to Matt Pearce, their lead commentator over here, and he talked about the fact that they've got a really strong mentality about, well, they named their team on a Tuesday. You know what? You can know what's coming. We're going to tell you who's playing because you know what to expect now. This is our group of guys. You know the way that we're going to play. We actually haven't got any secrets here. There's no smoke and mirrors. We're coming through the front door. We're coming through the front door. We're going to knock it down, and then we're going to put 6 people off the bench, 6 reserves forwards, and they're going to knock it down again. And so the All Blacks know exactly what to prepare for. To your point then, Paul, okay, what do they have the All Blacks take it away from the Irish series, and what can they apply against South Africa? Because South Africa is a completely different team and a completely different challenge. They don't have the same type of attacking structures. So some of the things that they may have worked on against Ireland or have been developing, and then you add in Jason Ryan and what he's bringing, they'll be focused well and true on countering what the Springboks are going to bring up front. And so we know, and it's going to be a simple game plan. They've got so much size. They'll be direct. They've got very smart midfielders. No Cheslin Colby in this. He's been replaced on the wing through injury. So the Springbok team, but once again, like Matt Pearce says, is they don't want to hide anything. This is who we are. We're comfortable with who we are. That's where I think we're at the moment, a little bit uncomfortable with where the All Blacks are, right, Paul? We're not exactly sure where the All Blacks are. So that's what we want to see, right? We want to see exactly what the All Blacks are comfortable and all about on the game this weekend.
Does the Springbok side lack a wee bit of creativity? And if so, do they actually need it?
No, they don't need it. And they've proven they don't need it. But what I can say is the fact that they've still got, when you've got power players like they do have, and when they pressure so well on defence, they can turn their defence into attack, and then all of a sudden you'll see a different impact from the players they do have on the outside who are very quick, who can finish. And then you have like a Willie LaRue as well, who's one of those guys, and you watch him, he can change a game off the bench. He's the one guy you look at and go, you know what? His impact on the game and the way that he plays can give them the creativity they may need, but often they don't need it. And the thing with the Springboks is that they're not a team that'll go out there and blow you off the park in the first 20 minutes by scoring multiple tries. It's almost like they'll continually grind you away. They'll grind you and grind you and grind you. I think that's the secret to them, is the fact that they are relentless. And then in the last 10 minutes, generally you've taken all your hits, and then they just accumulate points. And quite often they'll score a try late, which will make the score look really good. They've won by a comfortable margin, but actually the game's always been reasonably close. Even the third test against Wales, it took them time to wear the opposition down. And I don't think that DNA will change for them, But like I say, they've got consistency across their whole squad. But their defence quite often leads to attack.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all the Springboks, they're so good at what they're doing. I might say, we don't always see their A+ game, but I think you can be a lot more confident you're going to see a B+ or an A- performance from them pretty much every time out on the park than maybe from the All Blacks, which leads us on to the All Blacks themselves. Everyone listening to this podcast knows what happened the last 2 tests against Ireland. From your perspective, Jeff, do they need to try and maybe pull a few tricks out of the bag to beat the Springboks team? Is there anything you'd like to see the boys do differently on Saturday night, your time? Anything you think they might any areas they could target the Springboks, any of that sort of stuff?
Well, I mean, I think the challenge the All Blacks have had is coming up against an unbelievably organised Ireland team on both sides of the ball. Very, very good defensively, game plan defensively, very effective against the All Blacks, and their conditioning to suit that. And then on attack, they'd found ways to put the All Blacks under pressure. So, I mean, the first port of call realistically is selection. And this is going to be Ian Foster's team. Joe Schmidt's come on board, but he's been doing a lot of analysis on South Africa and what's going on in the Rugby Championship, preparing for that. And my understanding is he's been providing advice in terms of which players might suit playing against them. But all the things that we've heard is that Ian Foster's picking a team, his team. And I'm fascinated to see what that looks like. And in terms of what they've learnt up against Ireland is that some of those things you may have learned don't apply when you're playing South Africa, because all of a sudden it can be quite a little bit simpler. And to your point about we know how South Africa is going to play, then so do you have to negate that, and where does that come from? And Paul, you talk about, do you go with the tried and true? If your job was on the line, because it's essentially you think his job's on the line, do you take the guys that you've trusted in the past, and then you look at it and go, well, I've given the responsibility to the guys that I know, or you go, you know what? Am I going to roll the dice with a few young guys who are now fit and available and go, I need them to create something for us that we haven't seen? Does that mean Caleb Clark gets to play? Does that mean they shift the option at centre? Does Lester Fainga'anuku play at centre? I don't know these things, but what I look at it is this team, I think, will very much be you'll know, a mindset of Ian Foster very, very quickly. We're rolling the dice, and we've given these guys, the young guys, and we're going to run them off the park, and we're basically going to beat them with speed and talent, or we're going to play a more structured game, negate the opposition, and then find ourselves in a position where we can hold on to the ball for long periods of time rather than one-off explosive tries. That's the thing he's got to be juggling up right now. And when he names the team in a few hours, we'll get a real good indication of what to expect, I think, from our game plan.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Paul, I saw your eyes sort of light up there when Jeff mentioned the possibility of Lester Fainga'anuku in the 13 jersey. Is there anything you're hoping or expecting to see when this team list is finally revealed overnight New Zealand time?
I'd love to see Lester in the 13 jersey. He's a big body with. He's got skills. He can distribute the ball as well, but he can take the tackler on if need be, and set up another point of attack. So I would like to see Lester in the 13 jersey. Obviously, Ian Foster, he'll have his own ideas, and we'll find out in the not too distant future just which avenue he's going to take. I think we could probably take a leaf or two out of the Irish book, and how they went about winning the second two tests against the All Blacks. And one of the things they did really well was change the point of attack very quickly and isolate big forwards and create gaps for players who are a wee bit quicker than the big forwards that they had isolated, and that created scoring opportunities. Well, there's a hell of a lot of big forwards on that Springbok side, so the All Blacks could take something from the Irish thing and maybe look at changing the point of attack quickly and putting the likes of Beauden Barrett or Richie Mo'unga or Lester Fainga'anuku into a gap.
Yeah, there's some little things you said there around what Ireland have done well and where they've put the All Blacks under pressure. The Springboks tend to do things a little bit closer to the breakdown. They tend to focus a little bit nearer. They don't tend to put the ball in the air anywhere near as much. They certainly use their big bodies. They certainly try and put you in a position where not only are you going backwards, but you're having to make repeated tackles, get up in the same area, make repeated tackles. Look, they're going to rely heavily on the fact that the All Blacks' Achilles heel will be if they are ill-disciplined. If they're ill-disciplined, that's the one recipe for disaster against South Africa, is the fact that you give away penalties. Everyone knows this. Give away penalties, give away territory, and then you're at risk of one of their greatest assets, which is their line-out drive and their scrum. You can't argue with their scrum. And now, remembering we've gone to South Africa we have no Joe Moody, of course, he's out for the season. Now we lose Afatoanga Fasi, Nepo Lalala, all of our big bodies, the guys that you would have relied heavily on to anchor our scrum, those responsibilities are falling now on Angus Tartwell, recovering from and coming back from his suspension. It's what you do with Fletcher Newell. Does he get an opportunity straight away? I'm fascinated. Samasoni Takiaho didn't play in the last Test match, wasn't even involved after showing great development last year and showed some impact in those first 2 Test matches. So once again, it's so much of a mindset about, and I think tempo is going to be everything. And for us as the All Blacks, the hardest thing to do against South Africa sometimes is go through the middle of the park because they are such big bodies. But in saying that, that's the time you can fatigue them. And if you roll up your sleeves and you go to work, particularly in those inside and narrow channels, and that's where I'm fascinated to see what they do with Scott Barrett. Didn't play the 3rd Test. Pivotal player in the 1st Test in terms of tactically. Line out option, line out defence. Jason Ryan comes in familiar with his bodies. He knows Cody Taylor. He knows Sam Whitelock. So all of a sudden there's key drivers, the key guys that he has had success with, may play a key part in negating some of the Springbok strengths. So, where Scott Barrett fits in the All Black forward pack and starting pack is actually pivotal, right? Pivotal to almost the whole selection of the forward pack, because then it changes who's at tight head lock, and that changes what they have in front of them in the front row in terms of who's at tight head, and does that mean they need a bit of extra size at hooker? So does that where Takiaho falls in? I mean, and then just negating size for size. No Brodie Retallick. So who comes into the mix? Tupavai or Patrick Tuipulotu? I mean, I was just saying earlier, I'll just say quickly, is that we sat here and debated, Marshy and I and Nisbo, for 2 days, who we think's going to play. And we have no idea the names that Ian Foster's going to put down, because right now, we can't see who clearly can be the difference makers for the All Blacks. And that's, that's a concern, right?
Yeah, it's got to be, I think we're in a unique position as the All Blacks where there's not sort of maybe 10, 12 names you just throw on the team sheet straight away and they are close to the best in the world. I was sort of just doing the mental sums, been preparing for this podcast, and while I think there would be about 5 or 6 All Blacks in a combined 15 between these 2 teams, I'd say Ardie Savea is the only All Black you put in with pen straight away that you have conversations about pretty much every other top-tier All Black and whether they are better than their Springbok counterpart, which is certainly interesting. And for me, I think looking back at the film from the Wales series, Wales had a lot of success when they embraced the fact that they were underdogs and took some risks. And particularly in the forward pack, they didn't try and stop the Springboks doing what they do. They tried to disrupt them. They tried to sort of work around the edges, and they've got great disruptors, particularly in that second row and their loose forwards. Do you think this All Black team, they have maybe the humility to accept that they are underdogs in some ways and are prepared to take some of those risks and maybe risk a big defeat if it means getting a win over in South Africa because maybe they can't match the Springbok pack physically?
How many times have it been, Paul? Do you think that the All Blacks are genuine underdogs going into a Test match?
Well, I can tell you, since the beginning of sports betting with the TAB, the All Blacks have only opened up outsiders 3 times before this match here, and all 3 times was against South Africa, and all 3 times the tests were in South Africa, and all 3 times we lost. So it's not a good trend there.
But in saying that, though, I think they haven't beaten us here for a long time now. It's been the last few times. It's been 8 years, I think. I mean, it's been a long time since they've beaten us in South Africa. Which is remarkable when you think about what you've just talked about. And then, like, I think I was here. There was a remarkable comeback in Pretoria in 18, I think, where we got behind and scored late, or came back storming back in the second half. It was an unbelievable occasion. And that's what, I mean, and I look at the 2 Test matches last year, the 100th and 101st, played in Australia, which was clearly odd for everybody, but 2 fantastic tests. And the margins were so very, very small, and they were actually high-scoring affairs. In and around, both teams scoring in and around 30 points, as I remember. So you start thinking about both teams have got the ability to accumulate and score points, and it's just a matter of whether the All Blacks put themselves in a position where they're having to come over the top of and it's just the point of the team. We haven't been winning the last 20 last 20 minutes of those 3 test matches against Ireland, All Blacks usually win the last 20 minutes. Even the first test, right? We were comfortable, we were in control. It was the last 20 minutes. So as much as I debate and discuss what we do with the returning 15, it's then the next 8 guys. Those next 8 guys who generally in the games against this South Africa have the responsibility, or any test, have the responsibility of winning. But that tells a story at the moment. That's the odds don't lie, right, in terms of what the form book's saying. And South Africa, this world champion team has got a lot of class about it. Really, really has, you know. I will say this, though. They rely very, very heavily on one player, and it's Andre Pollard. Andre Pollard is the marker at 10 for them. He gives them incredible confidence. So you talk about finding a way to unsettle the Springboks. If there's one way you can do that, is if you can get to Andre Pollard and put him under pressure and force him into making some tactical errors, that may create opportunities.
Do you think he's cemented that number 10 jersey? That's his now to lose, or could we see him being challenged by? No.
Yeah, no, it's definitely his. It's definitely his. You talk to anyone here in South Africa, Elton Junkies has done a really good job for them when he's been needed to. Andre came back after the Northern Hemisphere. He'd been playing up there. He was a little bit banged up before the World Series, so that's why he didn't feature in the first, but came back and captained in the second. Was a bit underdone, but I think they all know that he's their guy. Damien Willems is another player who has and can fill that void, but there's a clear gap. You talk to anyone here, there's a clear gap when Pollard's not playing, and that helps them on both sides of the ball, defensively and on attack. You know, he's a guy who can deliver under pressure.
And I mean, that's not dissimilar to Ireland, right? Like, we all knew going into that series that Jonathan Sexton was their man. He has that forward pack on a string. He's the one you need to upset and get off on this rhythm. And in those second and third tests, he just bossed the entire game. No one in the All Blacks, I think it was Dane Cole, said he played in a dinner suit for most of that series. So
yeah. The other guy, Paul's massive, and Patrick is Faf de Klerk. Whatever he does at halfback, he is niggly against the All Blacks. He's one of those guys who really doesn't conform to any sort of system. He is the right place, right type sort of guy. So his impact he has on the game, and whether he's coming through, bringing pressure, you watch him, he tries to anticipate when the ball's coming out, but then he's got an ability to cover the backfield. Is incredibly quick, and that's an area around the fringes of the ruck I do get slightly concerned, is the fact that he can, you know, up against some of our big bodies, he could give us some sort of issue.
Yeah, for sure. I think we've sort of touched on it, right? There are these key players on both sides, and the odds makers certainly suggest this is going to be a close test. We were talking about it before we started recording, Goldie. There's only 1.5 points in the point start market. The All Blacks are now just edged out to, I think it's $2.10 head to head. But do you get the feeling this is going to be a game that comes down to those little moments, whether it's a Pollard or a de Klerk, or on the other side of Bowden Barrett or an Aaron Smith, or someone who can find that one gap or get that one break going? And are you expecting it to be a tight game overall?
100%. Odds you like. You take the head-to-head on the All Blacks. I mean, bottom line. I mean, if you're not going to get them on the underdog, you're not going to get them at $2 very often. You look at what's at stake. You think to yourself that, I'll say this, halfway through the second half against Ireland, the score was 22-17. 22 points to 17. The game was in the balance. Now, we'd worked hard to get it in the balance. We'd still scored 2 great tries after halftime. We'd done that, right? So don't underestimate it, and don't assume the All Blacks were miles away. We've done this before. We can do this again. It's about winning the last 20 minutes of these test matches. That's what it's about. So if you've got confidence in the bench, and I think I've got confidence in where they're going with this group, get on the $2. What is it? 210? Did you say?
210.
210. If it's pure and simply double your money on the All Blacks to win. I mean, that's, if you've got any faith in them, which you should have, because they're the All Blacks. That's what they are, and they understand. And our history here in recent times, and the way that we play the game. And if it comes down to one score, I'd give us a great opportunity to go ahead and win that. And if there's a player to watch, and I've got no doubt he'll be in the team, it's Will Jordan's impact he can have on the game, because they will kick the ball to us. And it's whether or not he's playing at fullback or playing on the wing. I think for him, if there's some sort of, you'll have a power play with Will Jordan somewhere, get involved. Get involved. If there isn't one, I expect one by the end of the day. That's what I expect. There's a power play with Will Jordan scoring the second or third try. If there's another one, Artie Savia. You mentioned him. He's in remarkable form. So I think this, to me, they've been at two of our very best, in the last 2 years. They're going to have a big impact on this game.
Yeah, I think I'll be chucking Will Jordan and Malcolm Marks in all my same game multis. They'll be the 2 try scorers I can see, because I don't think the Springboks will be venturing very far from that rolling maul. But
any Springbok hooker to score a try, there's your power play.
That's a very, very good bet. That's a very good bet. No, it's great.
We'll make our official picks, Paul, when we reconvene tomorrow morning once the teams have been named, unless there's anything you want to throw out here while we've got Goldie on the line for future.
I just wonder, after the test match finishes, will Goldie be trying to have a little chat with the All Blacks like Marshy did after the final test in Wellington here?
I won't be putting my mouth guard in. I'll tell you that for a fact. No. I honestly, I don't think, I've heard a lot of people in New Zealand who talked to them for a number of years now. They've gone on the My Sky, they've recorded the game, and they've got up in the morning to watch it. Most people that I've spoken to are getting up to watch this live, in the middle of the night. This is not I don't want, in case I hear the result, I don't want to, I want to watch this live because, as much as we want the All Blacks to win, the interest in this game has gone through the roof. The interest in the All Blacks and watching this live in the middle of the night, it's almost got an old school feel about the fact that because we don't know the result, we don't know what's going to happen. The fact we are the underdog. How good would it be, on Sunday morning at about, I don't know, what's it going to be, about 5:30, 6 o'clock, you're celebrating what could be a really, really important win for the All Blacks.
Yeah, 100%. This is a pivotal game in All Black history. We'll be deciding which road we take after the result of this game, I'm fairly sure. And so, but I do hope the best for the All Blacks. They're trading almost dollar for dollar now in that head-to-head book with the Springboks. So we may see them drift a wee bit more before the start of the test. And so I'll just wait to see if they make it out to 220 and then have a little stab there. But you're right. They are getting at very, very attractive odds the more they drift out. And that 210's almost got me ready to go. I just think it might move a little bit more before kickoff on early Sunday morning our time.
Yeah, I'm sort of eyeing up that 290 that you can currently get for the 1-12 because I think, I certainly don't see this being a blowout if the All Blacks do get on top. But still got a little bit of time before I make the final calls. But
what's the 1-12 the other way?
$2.50.
Covering bets? Covering bets.
Not the way. You've got the bonus back in play as well. If it is 13 plus for promo and play for the punters, so plenty to.
Oh, have you? Good on you. Outstanding. Like
you said, Jeff, it's one of the more fascinating tests in modern memory, at least as far back as I can remember. So I do appreciate you jumping on to give us all the latest from over in South Africa. Hope you enjoy what hopefully is a close and entertaining test match and make the most of your time over in the public. Thanks, Bunch, for joining us and go well. Enjoy it over there.
No problems at all. 45,000 here. It'll be sold out. Curry, the home of the current Curry Cup champions. First time in 100 years. Local team won the Curry Cup. So they've got a sort of great vibe going on with rugby. When you see the stadium, it is first class. You'll love it. Cheers, guys. Look forward to chatting to you again. And hopefully, this is after a fantastic All Black win.
Cheers, Jeff. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Cheers,
and, of course, the site of the All Whites drawing with Italy in the Football World Cup a few years ago. So some good memories for Kiwis there.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. We'll let you get out of here on that. Have a good one.
Cheers, bro. See you all.